Hi, my name is Griffin Peterson, and this is my internship overview for the spring 2025 semester. Sweet, let's get into it. Okay, so I got an internship at Planston. So Planston is a benefit administration service offering health insurance and other plans for small businesses and the self-employed. Basically what Planston is, small businesses, only about 50% of them actually offer insurance for their employees. And the reason is it's very timely to do this. It's not cost effective, and it just kind of doesn't make sense for companies to do it. And so Planston is offering a solution to that. So employers can come to Planston. We help build them plans they can afford, and then they can easily present to their employees using our software, and they can manage it, and the employees can manage it. And it's pretty awesome. So Planston actually owns two sister companies too, and we work with them. We do the technology for them. So the first one is Zion Health Share, which is an alternative to health insurance. Allows members to contribute to each other's medical expenses. It's also called medical cost sharing. The other is Primeston Care, where it's a small doctor's office to provide close doctor-to-patient relationships, where they can get on the Primeston app and easily book stuff and message their doctor. And lastly, they can actually do video calls through a application called SteadyMD, where doctors are always available to get quick feedback if they need to go to the hospital, if they need prescriptions. So both of those are also offered. So we sell both of them through Planston. And again, we're going to do the technology for them. So let's talk about my internship. So this is an internship in software engineering. And here are my responsibilities. So full stack development, being a part of the team. So the sprints, stand-ups, managing story points, huddles, working on app support, data engineering, creating documentation, but really it just comes down to being able to communicate with the other engineers and managers. So I know for this demo, you kind of wanted to see two projects I worked on. So the way I wanted to split this up, because the internship is basically split in half for me between doing full stack engineering one half and working on the app support the other half. I'm just going to treat these as projects as a whole that I worked on. That being said, when I was doing the full stack engineering, I did work on a big project, and I'll go over it here. With the app support, because of HIPAA laws, I can't really show much, just because everything I was working on was just kind of fixing data around. And yeah, so let's get into the full stack developer. So Planston's main application is Enrollment Manager. This is where employers pick their plans. This is where they add employees, where employees go in and manage stuff. Enrollment Manager is a beast and had plenty of problems when I came in. So as a full stack engineer, I added a lot of new features to it. Most of all, though, I'm just fixing bugs. I was heavily involved in the agile development practice, which I think was really cool. And my main thing was just, closing tickets, and these ranged from updating UI, adding API endpoints, creating AWS Lambdas, or even adding columns or tables to the database. So here's kind of what the development looked like. So first I'll go over Agile. So we did morning meetings, stand-ups, where I kind of reported my work and I got to see what my team's working on. And then I even helped assign story points to issues. I participated in sprint retrospectives, and I heavily used the Atlassian products, Jira and Confluence. And then just kind of some software practices I learned. So everything I did was working on my local machine when developing, on a local server I was running, an instance of the front end and database. And then once I got that developed, so I would create a branch, and then I'd create a pull request where two other engineers would have to review my code. And rarely would I get it right on the first time. They always had good feedback of how I could refactor stuff, or I'd forget comments or console logs. And then once that looks good, so I have to go and test it on an AWS feature environment. And then once I think it looks good and they think it looks good, then I submit it to QA, where QA does extensive testing. And if they think it's good, then it goes into prod once the sprint is over. That being said, I struggled a lot with QA at first. We have a really good QA team, and they found a lot of edge cases that I didn't even think to test. And so it kind of changed how I develop forever now. I do heavy testing. I do a lot of logging now. I test a lot of edge cases, and I think overall, dealing with QA and code reviews, it just kind of made me more mindful of when I'm developing. So here's some technologies I learned. So on the front end, I learned Storybook. So this is how we had our own UI library, and this is just how we had it in there. I learned how to use the developer console. So, I had already known about it and used it a little, but I used it a ton more with logging and errors and warning and using the network tab. We worked with React on the front end, which came with working with Material UI. And instead of a JavaScript, we mainly worked with TypeScript. On the server, I learned how to use Postman with a team. So we're all in the same, on like a Planson account, meaning we can see each other's requests and create new ones and collections and how to do like the authentication in Postman. Servers in Node.js and TypeScript. And then learned a lot about AWS with Lambda, CloudWatch, and DynamoDB being the main impacts of the server. And then development stuff, learned about those AWS feature environments, learned about GitHub Actions. So the goal is you make a pull request, and then it's going to automatically make that feature environment. That would rarely happen, so I'd have to go in and work with the action or just go and restart on AWS. And then learned a lot about Git version control. So, before this, I'd only ever developed on my own. So learning how to create a branch, a pull request, deal with merge conflicts. It was awesome. It was a learning curve. I'm really glad, though, that I have that tool in my tool belt. And then database, I just worked with two main programs, SQL Workbench or dbeaver. Is SQL database, pretty straightforward. Yeah. So this project I'm going to go over. So this one's actually really cool. It was building an auto address validation. So I'm sure you've seen it before. This is where you're on a web page and you start typing in your address, and it's going to give you suggestions of what it thinks you want. And then when you see the right one, you click on it, and then it's going to go in and fill in all the fields. This is great for companies because it's going to be less error with the addresses. It's also nice for consumers because it's faster for them. No one likes filling out forms. And I did this by using the Google Places API to send each character to get back a list of what the possible fields could be. And this project was big. It took me about 3 weeks to do everything, and I learned a lot. But here are kind of 5 simple points I made. First, I spent a lot of time reading the Google API documentation. There's a lot of ways to do this. I had to kind of choose my path on how I was going to implement it, and then I had to figure out how Google wanted me to do it, so I did it the right way. I had to set up billing with Google and secure the API keys. I think it's really awesome that they let me set all that up. It was a good learning experience. Of course, the first time I was done, I just pushed those API keys right up, and they're like, no, we can't do this. This is not secure. But I also had to deal with sessions. So I could have done it very fastly and charged my company a lot more money, but I did it the right way, where you have to make sessions and repass them in each request to make sure you're using it efficiently with Google, because it's not that much, but if you do it wrong, Google does make you pay for it. And then I had to create all of this in a Confluence page to show my research, why I'm going with Google, how I'm doing it, how I set it up. This way, when I'm gone, other developers, if they need to change stuff, they can easily come in and see what I've been doing. I learned how to create a component that is easy to use and implement in existing code. So, when I developed this, it was just in this one text field here, which is kind of the first page on the wizard. But I eventually went in and I added this to every single address field in the web app, which I think there was 7 or 8 of them. And so I had to design it in such a way that can just easily be plugged in for the existing one. And then because of that, I got to add it to Storybook into my Planson's UI library. They didn't know if it'd be possible at first because it is such a big component and most things in the UI library were simpler. But with a lot of work and a lot of help from other engineers, we were able to make it in a very simple form that can easily be used. And they're going to keep using this forever. And they've already used it with PrimeStin and Design Healthcare apps. And so it was pretty awesome that I got to build that. So that was kind of the last thing I worked on as a full stack engineer. And that was a good hurrah for it. And then they needed my help with app support. So again, there's Planston, Zion, and Primeston all working on the same stuff, all the same developers, and they only had one app support guy. And the app support engineer is just getting absolutely swamped with tickets. So they pulled me aside, they asked if I wanted to help him. I was a little reluctant because I really liked doing full stack engineering. But my mentor was like, dude, you will learn way more doing app support. You are going around, you're touching every system. You're the one finding the bugs. This is like really realistically kind of what it looks like to be a developer, learn how to maintain code like this. And so I said, all right, let's do it. So I learned a lot of technologies, most of them being CRMs. So Salesforce, a huge one, that's what I work in every day. If I'm developing, it's using Apex code or Salesforce data loader to get data in and out of Salesforce. Zion uses Zoho CRM and AWS Cognito to manage their customers. And then Primeston used Serbo CRM, SteadyMD, and then also Cognito. And then the reason I put Jira on here, so I was using Jira before, but now I have multiple boards to go through. I'm creating tickets, I'm seeing tickets, I'm pushing them off to other engineers to fix, and I'm really utilizing Jira to its full potential here rather than before, where I was just seeing what was assigned to me. So here are my main takeaways from app support. So almost all the problems come from these two main ones on the left. So first, integrating with other software is where most problems are going to come. So, Planston, most of our data comes from Enrollment Manager, and those are all clean, smooth across. We built that system, we built our Salesforce to go with it. It works really well. But there's also other vendors that kind of sell Planston that go into us, and that's where a lot of problems happen. We have to deal with them sending duplicate records, having errors in records, just not sending us stuff anymore. And there's a lot of data moving around in our system and a lot of problems that come through integration. And same with the fact that, like if I go back here, you can see we're using 3 different CRMs, Salesforce, Zoho, and Serbo. And all the CRMs talk to each other. It's a lot of data being passed around and a lot can go wrong. Another one is without proper data validation, both on the front and the back end, many problems will occur that require manual correction. My meaning of this, our customer support team or just consumers going and using our stuff, they're gonna type stuff in wrong. We call it having fat fingers. People fat finger stuff all the time. And it's kind of our job as developers to make sure we're validating data to kind of minimize how much fat fingering happens. But, if something's wrong, it was either someone typed it in wrong or integration sent it over wrong. And then my last kind of nitpick only with doing app support, many app support problems could have easily be fixed by a customer support team when they took the call instead of pawning it off to us. I'd say about 1 in 5 problems actually involved me going in and changing code or reading through code. The 4 out of the 5 problems are just me updating fields on Salesforce or Zoho. Maybe there's a typo in the email or an ID is wrong. And I realized it wasn't that hard. And I definitely did miss being a developer on those days where it just felt like I was just filling out fields. But yeah, again, can't show any projects with app support. There wasn't really any big projects I did work on. It was just mainly fixing stuff. So this is the end. This is a conclusion. Bottom line, I absolutely loved working at Planston, and I learned way more than I ever thought I could. Honestly, here are my big 3 takeaways. So I realized working at a tech company is spending 50% of your time talking about a problem and the other 50% fixing it. So I always had this thought in my head, working at a tech company is going in, putting my headphones in, and just programming for 8 hours straight, day after day. That is not at all true. Not only is there a lot of meetings, but when you're developing, you run into a lot of roadblocks and you have to go around and ask people for help. And even if you don't need help, you're going to be working a lot with other people's code. Like, it's rare that I'm just going to be coding something that's mine. So I'm going to need to go around and ask other people how they implemented it and what they think they would do. And then 2, once I submit the code, I get code reviews and I participate in reviewing others' code. So there's a lot of talking honestly, I loved it. I loved my coworkers and the atmosphere. And I think if I would have just been me with my headphones in, it would have been a lot lonelier. And I don't know if I would have wanted to stick with it. But so I honestly love that part about it. I learned a lot about the healthcare industry and insurance. But most of all, I learned that I don't know that much about it. It's pretty complicated when it comes with HIPAA laws and all the different plans. And I only scraped the iceberg on that one. But most of all, I just took away how to be a full stack engineer and how to maintain large systems. I think it's pretty great that my internship kind of got split up that way, where I spent half of it developing and working with the team, and then I spent the other half just maintaining it, working with customers. A lot of times I'd have to email or call customers, working with the customer support team. And so I really just got to touch kind of everything Planson had to offer. And yeah, it was great. I feel like I learned a ton, and I'm super thankful they hired me. And if they offered me a job as a part-time employee, I'd definitely take it. All right, well, that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening.